I'm going to jump right in because I don't know how much. I know how much time I have. I pretty much have the rest of the night if I really want to. You guys will be here till 10:30 at night. But I imagine I'm just kidding. I imagine that we would probably all want to go home sometime tonight. So here it is my brother. Please be praying for the Tate family, as my brother just got off work. He just sent me a message, so that's why they're not here tonight. They've been he had a little breakdown and all that other fun stuff, and because of the holiday, he only had one place to dump everything, so he had to come all the way back and then go back away. So, anyways, just be praying for them. So, with all that being said, I am not going to finish Daniel chapter 2. I'm going to take my time with it. And I'm just going to, since he's not here, he gets to opt out of the decision. I'm going to go ahead and take his next Wednesday too. So he doesn't know that yet, but he'll hear it recording sometime in the next 24 hours that he lost his day for preaching. So no. Oh, don't be like, oh, I've given him plenty of my days when I'm like, I got nothing. No, I'm just playing. He will know. No, I really wanted to dive deep into this tonight, and I know that we only have a certain amount of time, and there's a lot of things I'd like to cover tonight, and honestly, but I wanted to share something before this, and so it's kind of taking that time. So please bear with me, but it's just awesome to see what God does. Okay? When we're just kind of going through our own normal functions and doing our own normal things, we sometimes lose that. But when we lift up God in our lives, when we sit there and go, you know what, God, we need to really refocus here on something, and we give that over to Him, He reveals things to us all over the place, right? We get to see His true power at work when we do these things. And so let me explain a little bit, kind of going back in time just a couple days. So after Pastor Bob's Sunday night message, as he was talking, and honestly, I think everybody understands this, as we're up here preaching, teaching, talking, all that stuff, things are being revealed in our own life, right? God is revealing things that may not have to do with anything with the sermon, right? But just in this moment of worship and praise and just taking a moment, kind of getting out of ourselves, we see things, we hear things, God reveals something in our life. And with that being said, me and my children, I've talked to you guys before about this, that we would do a Bible study. Well, just because of, for one, COVID, and we didn't have any places to go to really kind of get away from our house, we kind of stopped doing some Bible studying, and then we filled the time with something else, right? So we always do. And so that Sunday night, I saw Kylie up here, and God revealed to me, He's like, what about Bible study? Where you been? I go, oh man, you're right. And I realized, I was like, man, we got to get back on Bible study, our own Bible study. I give my time to so many other things that I forget about my wife, I forget about my children. And oh well? Oh, no, I thought you said, oh, well. I was like, well, I mean, no. But, I mean, I don't forget about them. I mean, it's not like I come into the house and be like, oh, man, who are you guys? You know, like, not like that. But, we get so busy with our own lives. We get so busy with work and this and that and sports and this and all this stuff. We kind of just get overloaded, you know. But so during Pastor Bob's message, I feel this God nudge, right? Like, we need to do this. I said, okay. So right when we walked outside, you know, we get into the car. I tell Kylie, I said, hey, we're going to start Bible study up this Monday. Austin's going to Rangers, so we're going to start Bible study up. And she's like, Dad, I was thinking the exact same thing. I said, all right. Well, I think she was thinking the same thing because she wanted ice cream, but it's a whole nother story. No, he's awesome. But we usually, because Brahms is open, we have our study at Brahms. And I finish my ice cream first. Of course, we get there on Monday night, and I finish my ice cream first. And she's still milking it. And so I start reading out loud Daniel chapter 2, right? Because I was like, kind of kill two birds with one stone. I get to, get sermon prepared for Wednesday night, and we get to eat ice cream, and we're going to study it tonight. So I started reading Daniel chapter 2, which was where we're at tonight. And I was reading, and I was making notes. And as I was making notes, as I was kind of reading along, she's eating her ice cream, I'm making notes and talking. I noticed this family come in. And I by the dress attire, I know it was a very conservative Christian family. I just, you can just tell by people how they dress that they are a conservative family, and this is grandparents, parents, and children. And they were coming in, ordering, and then they were sitting down. And I was reading out loud, so I'm sitting there reading. Guys, I work in a jail, so when I feel people's presence, my personal bubble space is a lot larger than normal people, right? Because when I see people come into like this space, I'm looking like that 6 feet, kind of, because I'm always worried about who's going to be around. So when they come into that space, I'm like, whoa, I start feeling things. And so I'm reading, and I see out of the corner of my eye this guy coming up, and he's just standing there. And I'm like, okay, what's this? So I kind of finish, and I make my notes, and he sits there and he goes, what are you reading? And he has a big smile on his face, okay? And he's holding a baby too. So I know he's not gonna like start punching me or anything like that. So, but I noticed him hovering in my personal space, and so I of course I stopped and I looked at him, and he kind of asked me, he goes, what are you reading? I'm going to be honest with you guys. He already knew. He was close enough to read my scripture already. He already knew. And he had a big smile on his face. And so let me just stop there, and I'm going to bring a fact in here. When we were discussing between us three pastors where we're going to go, when Daniel was brought up, I'm like, oh, okay, sounds great. And I'm back in my mind's like, buddy, you haven't studied Daniel in a long time, if anything, barely any. There's a lot of prophecy in there. There's a lot of forward knowledge. There's a lot of revelation stuff in there. There's a lot to unpack there. Are you sure you want to do this? And I'm like, yeah, sounds great. And so God already knew. He's like, really? You? So anyways, I'll be honest with you. I was becoming very nervous when we were talking about doing Daniel. But it was inside. God knew what was going on inside. And this is the thing that I want to really unpack. And I think we're all going to unpack it in the next several weeks about this. But I want to just bring this out tonight. God reveals, God rescues, and God reigns. Okay? Daniel explains this from 2 through 7. God reveals, God rescues, God reigns. Amen. So let me go back. Now, Ben turns out to be a Bible teacher. Ben's main study recently has been over Daniel and the connection to Revelation. Okay? With a baby in his hand, he started teaching and bringing some awesome study references about Daniel, and he started giving me some points. He even stated that. He goes, God reveals, God rescues, God reigns. And he starts talking about all this, and we're talking so long, he reminds me of Pastor Brand. We're talking so long that the baby was taken out of his arms so he could continue talking to me at that time. If he had ice cream at his table, it was probably melting at that time too. But he finally, after the baby kind of gets taken out of his arms, he realizes maybe it's time to go ahead in this conversation. Maybe he did go spend more time with his family, but he ends, and so me and Kylie go back to our studies, and then he comes back up at the very end and comes back up and says, "Hey, I have done some notes on Daniel. Would you like them?" I said, "Absolutely." And then I tell him, "I don't know much about Daniel." I said, "I know the story. I read it, but I have never really done a full study for it. So I will take anything that you can give me." And again, it's that humbleness, like, look, I have nothing. So if you have anything is better than nothing. So let's do this. And so I said, "Yes, absolutely." So we switched, we gave each other's emails. And then, of course, I emailed him that night. And then I came back to work the next day, and he had 94 pages typed of notes of Daniel. I'm like, praise God, thank you, God. I'm good now on Daniel, so let's, we're gonna just jump into this now. Huh? Yeah. He gave me 94 pages, and it turns out I think he's actually a Bible. Kylie, I couldn't remember. Kylie told me that he actually said that he was a Bible teacher at college. So he had a lot of notes, a lot of notes, and I was so happy about it. Yeah. But so yeah. I'm just gonna have him come in and teach for me. No. So before we jump into Scripture, I want to just kind of remind everybody the book of Daniel and how it was kind of written. I know Pastor Bob did this already, but I want to reiterate this again so we understand where we're at with this. So again, that first chapter is in Hebrew. It's in Hebrew. It's the native tongue. So it was for the Israelites, the Jews. So it's for them. And chapters 2 through 7 is in Aramaic. Now, what's important about that is to understand that in Aramaic, it is a universal language, okay? It's a universal language. And that's where we have to kind of understand. So, like, for instance, if we look at in our modern time, you have Spanish, and then you have, like, Mayan, different dialects. And so you have that kind of native tongue, which would be like the Mayan. If we go down to Mexico, they would speak Mayan, and they would also speak Spanish. So you have these two different dialects. Just the same here, Aramaic is being spoken for a universal language everybody understands. And then chapters 8 through 12 is back to native tongue, the Hebrew. Why this is brilliantly done is because Daniel gives a message to the world of God's ultimate and universal sovereignty over man. And let me explain. Chapter 2, God reveals the future destruction of the structure of man's kingdom. Chapter 3, God rescues his people from the fiery furnace. Chapter 4, God reigns over human kings, Nebuchadnezzar, and humble and restoration. Chapter 5, God reigns over human kings, Belshazzar, humbled and deposed. Chapter 6, God rescues his people, Daniel from the lion's den. And then chapter 7, God reveals the future destruction of the four beasts and Antichrist. So we see these. Chapter 2, again, God reveals. Chapter 3, God rescues. Chapter 4, God reigns. Chapter 5, God reigns. Chapter 6, God rescues. Chapter 7, God reveals. And that's why it's so important to know this before we even jump into anything. That we see, as a reminder again, and if this is the only thing you get tonight, God reveals, God rescues, God reigns. If that's the only thing you take tonight, you're already a step ahead of everybody else. And these chapters, these 6 chapters, explains that again, God reveals, God rescues, God reigns, God rescues, God reveals. And they mirror each other. These texts, so 2 and 7 mirror each other, 3 and 6 mirror each other, and chapter 4 and 5 mirror each other. Beautifully written, beautifully done. And he does it. Daniel writes this in a language for everyone to know that God reveals, God rescues, God reigns. That's why it's so important. God, the Aramaic section demonstrates that God knows the future, provides salvation for his people, and reveals his complete sovereignty over the nations of the earth. God reveals, God rescues, God reigns. So we're going to go ahead and go into Daniel chapter 2. We're going to go to Daniel chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. I'm going to go ahead and read this out loud. In the second year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar and his had dreams that troubled him, and sleep deserted him. So the king gave orders to summon the magicians, the mediums, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans to tell the king his dreams. When they came and stood before the king, he said to them, I have had a dream, and I am anxious to understand it. So right off the bat, honestly, again, a lot of we kind of just walk through text a lot of times. But we can look off right off the bat, why is this significant? Well, here it is you have a king that has everything, right? Why would a king that has everything be troubled and can't sleep by a simple dream? Some of the most powerful people in the world are troubled by the smallest little things. Right? Something that me and you would probably be like, well, that's not a big deal. What do you, it's not that big of a deal. But some of the most powerful, strongest people out there are troubled by little things. Now, I'm just joking around on this. Think about the whole cartoon theme of an elephant being scared by a mouse, right? You've seen that, joking around. I remember back in my old cartoon days, but it's just that kind of that thing is like when the most powerful thing on earth, the most powerful being, and by the way, the king of Babylon was the greatest man in the world at that time, yet he was the man who had no peace. He was deeply troubled because he had a dream. And it is interesting that those who are in power often live in fear of losing that power. Right? And by the way, if you think about even us, the nature of life is that the more you have, the more that we have, the more we have to worry about. Everyone, even more, we worry about it being taken away. Now we can think right off the bat stuff, right? Stuff like our cars, stuff like our furniture, stuff like even our house. And we worry, we could be like, man, I really don't want that to go away. But when you get really touchy about it, is the loss of a loved one, a loss of a friend, right? The nature of us, we collect things. We collect people too. We're not, it's not our possession. People are not our possession. But sometimes we treat it like that, right? Sometimes we treat our family members as our possessions. These are ours. This is us. This is ours. You can't take this. And how many times have people have said that to God? I don't know why you're taking this from me. We kind of get in that mindset that this is ours, right? And that's what it is. The more as we get older, the more that we get, the more friends we have, the more family we have, it becomes ours. And as it becomes ours, we become selfish over it. And because we become selfish over it, we hoard it. It's ours. You can't have it. And we become worried about it. How many times do we worry about things? Right? We worry about our stuff, right? Well, did I leave the gas on or not? Did I leave the fireplace on or not? Did I leave the stove on or not? Did I leave the TV on or not? How many times we worry about things? Did I leave the garage door open? Worried about my stuff. But then we look at it, even our family members, right? We have that same thing. Oh, man, what if they get out there and drive? I'm talking about my children. What if What if they get around the bad crowd? What if they get around the bad things? What if they do this? What if they do that? We hoard this to ourselves, right? This is ours. We have no power over it, honestly, but we believe we have power over it. But to think of somebody even greater than us, somebody with true power, or great power, I should say, the greater the power, the greater striving to retain the power from all challengers, right? Think about it. I mean, we could look at Saul and David, right? That's a great example of that. That he wanted to retain his power, and so he was after to destroy David, right? Am I just thinking things out loud? Is that not right? Is that Saul, right? Saul and David, yeah. Everybody's not shaking their heads, so I'm like, well, maybe I need to check my Bible real quick. But even our own lives. So, I mean, we see that. We see that in our work. You know, if you remember any type of job, or it could have been anywhere, we see this same thing happening. The greater the power, we're worried about somebody taking that power away from us. We're worried about the next person coming up and being greater than we were, right? And that's a problem. That's what we see. That's what we think of. And so because of that, we try to do. Guys, I work for a sheriff's department that has a hierarchy of people. And so that's what I see all the time. People worried about their position, worried about the next person taking it. And I'm sitting here like, take my position. Take it. If you want more of my work, go ahead. Take it. I'm trying to give my work out to other people, but no. But it's just interesting. The greater the greater the power, the greater they're striving to retain the power from all challengers. This dream of Nebuchadnezzar confronts his weakness and inability that his power is only temporary. Right? We talk about that all the time. Our stuff that we have is temporary. It's temporary. Our lives are temporary. You know, and I think about this, you know, and guys, it's hard when we talk about COVID and we talk about this virus out there. Guys, it's dangerous. I will never ever say it's not. It is. It's dangerous. Some of us get it. It could hurt us. It could hurt us even more so that it could possibly take us. We could die from it, and people have. But we're not promised that we're going to survive this. We're promised that we're going to have a kingdom to go to. Right? That's what we're promised. We're not promised we're going to survive this. We're not promised that we're going to walk out of here. We're not promised that I'm not going to be done for. I'm not promised any second right now, and none of you are either. But what you are promised is if you believe in this Holy Scripture and you believe in Jesus Christ, that there is a kingdom that you are promised. And that's what we have to keep reminding ourselves. And that's the thing is Nebuchadnezzar was confronted that his reign, his kingdom is only temporary. And that's what his dream gave him. He didn't understand that. He knew that there was something there. He knew that there was something about what he's seeing as temporary, but he didn't understand it. But so at this moment, he becomes tyrannical and stubborn. And it is not unusual for men of power to lash out at others when they are forced to face the reality that they are not sovereign. I've seen people lash out because they have worked in their own power and not on God's. And these are godly men and women. They've worked in their own power and not in God's. Guys, I can tell you right now, I know when I work in my own power and I work in God's. I know Pastor Bob has expressed that to me too. He knows when he works in his own power and when he works in God's. Pastor Brandon has said those things. He knows when he works in his own power and when he works in God's. Kylie said something. She goes, and I'm going to tell on her for a minute, and then she conceded after this. After I said, she goes, Dad, God revealed to me that we needed to go to Brahms. It was like for me to say, oh, holy, thank you, Kylie. Thank you, oh, holy Kylie, for sending us to Brahms so we can meet Ben there. I said, Kylie, I said, that's not true. Don't say that. She's like, no, Dad. Duh. I was thinking Brahms. I was like, Kylie, we've been going to Brahms for the last 3 years. It's not like you have some divine intervention here. We were going to Brahms. It's pretty much the only place that's open right now. She's like, Dad, I chose it. I'm just letting you know, God gave that to me. I said, honey, here's a question. What if we went to somewhere else? Do you think God would have brought Ben to that restaurant? Okay, Dad, I get it. Point for me. But that's the thing is it's not in our power, it's in God's true divine power. We met Ben there. Ben and his family could have went to Brahms at any time. Right? Any time. We could have missed them by 10 minutes. We could have missed them by 20 seconds. Right? We could have missed them completely. God's divine time brought us together. And it's so simple. It was just, guys, I look at it this way. For us, it was because we were striving. We were hungry. And God fed us spiritually. Right? God fed us spiritually. When you're searching after me, I will always provide. And that's what we're at, guys. This is when, again, but it's just so interesting to me that when we look at all this, when we look at this scripture, oh man, I'm ready. Whew, I'm sorry. Let me get back on track. Let me get back on track here. Daniel chapter 2, verses 4 through 13. Let's read that real quick. The Chaldeans spoke to the king, and it says in my text, it says Aramaic begins here. May the king live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will give the interpretation. The king replied to the Chaldeans, he goes, my word is final. If you don't tell me the dream and its interpretation, you will be torn limb from limb, and your houses will be made into a garbage dump. But if you make the dream and its interpretation known to me, you'll receive gifts, a reward, and great honor from me. So make the dream and its interpretation known to me. They answered a second time, may the king tell the dream to his servants, and we will make known the interpretation. The king replied, I know for certain you are trying to gain some time, because you see that my word is final. If you don't tell me the dream, there is one decree for you. You have conspired to tell me something false or fraudulent until the situation changes. So tell me the dream, and I will know you can give me its interpretation. The Chaldeans answered the king, no one on earth can make known what the king requests. Consequently, no king, however great and powerful, has ever asked anything like this from any magician, medium, or Chaldean. What the king is asking is so difficult that no one can make it known to him except the gods, whose dwelling is not with mortals. Because of this, the king became violently angry and gave orders to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. The decree was issued that the wise men were to be executed, and they searched for Daniel and his friends to execute them. As I said before, we see that it is not unusual for men of power to lash out at those when they are forced to face the reality of their sovereignty. Yeah. So he has this dream, he expresses, but guys, I'm really pointing something out here. Nebuchadnezzar was wise. You know, we kind of make these people into, oh, they're a bunch of idiots. They're this, that, or the other. But I mean, really, isn't that a wise statement that he made? Like, no. You're going to tell me what my dream is, and then you're going to interpret it. Because if I tell you, anything can be said. Yep. You know, and honestly, and going back to Jonah a little bit, that was Jonah's little issue, by the way. He was giving false prophecy to the rulers of his time to make him better and to make the rulers better, in a sense. But we're looking at this, the Chaldeans were religious representatives of paganism. The king had placed them in a difficult place. Nebuchadnezzar knew that the dream was foreboding to his power, but he did not understand what it meant. With that being said, Nebuchadnezzar did not trust those around him to give the true meaning. I got to be honest with you. There's a quote, and I just come to my mind, but pretty much is this: if there is a bunch of people that agree, so like for me as a leader, as a lieutenant, I look at my sergeants, and if they did nothing but just agreed with me, they're worthless to me. And I say this because of this. I want people that are going to tell me no, and this is the reason why. I want people that they're going to give me their opinions. If we all have the same opinion, they're not worth anything to me. Nebuchadnezzar looked at these people and said they all agreed with him, right? They just, whatever it is, king, you're the greatest, you're the best, you're the greatest. And he's like, this is troubling to me. I need somebody that's going to give me the information. As unbelievers, their loyalty was ultimately to themselves and their lives, and not to the king. The king, therefore, set a challenge. You tell me what I know. This is a call for the true revelation which the Chaldeans admitted that can only be given by a God. Pagan religion must admit defeat in the face of this challenge, which sets the stage for the one true God to demonstrate his uniqueness as a revealer of secrets. I love that. We are going to end right here. I guess I should have said that a little different. We're going to end right here. And it's just perfect timing. It's only 6 minutes after 8. And this is why we barely got into this, but I feel like this is a great place to end, because this is where it goes right into Daniel and his response. We're ending on this cliffhanger. What's going to happen? I'm pretty sure y'all know what's going to happen. But I want to point something out here again. I'm looking at my own life in this moment when I'm meeting Ben for the first time, never meeting him. God reveals. What I mean by that, God reveals everything in our life. God reveals the fact that we are not all wise. We are not all powerful. We're not in one place at every moment and every time. God reveals these things to us. But he not only reveals, but he reveals himself to us. God reveals himself to us. God rescues us. Before that meeting with Ben, I had nothing. Before the Bible study with my daughter, I had nothing of what was going to be done tonight. But God rescues us over and over again. And he sends his ultimate rescuer, Jesus, to rescue us too. And God reigns. God reigns. There's nothing else I can say, but God reigns. It doesn't matter who sits in the seat of a president. God reigns. It doesn't matter if it's President Trump or President-elect Joe Biden. It does not matter. Guys, I had somebody come to me, and I'm going to end with this, I promise you. I had somebody come to me the other night. There's a work employee of mine, 2 ranks down, a corporal came to me. And he said, I had a dream and I want to give this to you. I want to speak to this. And he told me this dream, and he told me that he remembers somebody, and these two men above him that had higher ranking than him, wanted to make him, wanted to make an example out of him, okay? And all in all, I won't go too much to the full dream, but what I came to the realization as he was talking to me, and as he was talking this, God was revealing something to me in that conversation, because he was giving this dream to me and entrusting me with this dream, this revelation in a sense. And what I realize is, guys, for a long time now, I have been just becoming more angry with politics, with all of this stuff going on. Even though I knew I was watching good ones, the ones that are truthful, that give that good information. But I realized I was just kind of like compacting and becoming angry and frustrated and all this stuff. And then when this election comes, I haven't voted ever. I haven't voted in the last 16 years. And I vote for the first time, breaking that silence in a sense. Because I allowed my frustration, my anger, all these things that were being kind of in the background, I allowed these things to come forward. And I realized, because of my two fathers, my stepfather and my father, were so adamant about this other person, I wanted to counteract that. And how could they be thinking that person's going to be doing this? And overall, I allowed anger and frustration to change my view that I know God gave me this view on. And I realized in that moment that I needed to change something in my life. I needed to get away from the politics, all this junk, and to realize that God is in control. It does not matter who's up there running. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if that means the president that's in there right now that wants to run this country into the ground, if he wants to do that, he can. Because God's already in control of that. And if this president-elect wants to run this country into the ground, he's going to do that because God's already allowed it to happen. And if it's going to prosper, it's going to prosper. If it's going to fall, it's going to fall. But if we think that it's outside of God's hand, then we're mistaken. Now, what we can deal with is our own life. And that's what Pastor Bob talked about last time. What we can do. Remember that? Remember what Pastor Bob talked about, the food? Daniel talked about the food, what we can do for ourselves. We can't eat this. We can't indulge in this. So please excuse us from this. But we will show you that we are still good with you. Right? We have to be that same way. You know, please excuse us from being involved in the politics. Please excuse us for being political. But we still are good, and we still want to represent what is true and what is good. We need to put God in front of everything else. Because God reveals, God rescues, and God reigns. Amen. Let us pray. Father, just thank you so much for everything you have blessed us with. Father, we give you all